One of my most disappointing games of 2024 thus far has definitely been Star Wars Outlaws. Now, while many people wrote this game off initially because of the character design of the lead character, Kay Vess, I tried to keep an open mind towards it. I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan in the world, but I appreciate the first three films, and I guess the next three films were pretty good. I haven't really watched much of the final three films, but I definitely enjoy Star Wars style games. Even like bad ones, I think, still have a fun mechanic to them. So I kept an open mind with this game. Now, of course, I did a review of this game and I was not happy with it. I didn't think it was a very good game. There were core fundamental issues that extend way beyond just a character's design for me, and that kind of led me to have a negative experience with the game. I wouldn't necessarily fault anyone for liking it a little bit more than I did, I guess if they were a diehard Star Wars fan, but the game itself wasn't very fun. Kay Vess, the character, wasn't very well written. She wasn't an interesting character. She didn't have a super interesting story that you couldn't see what was going to happen with it. Now, I will say the last hour and a half or so of the game definitely felt like Star Wars. There were Star Wars elements to it. There were characters that were recognizable. And I thought some of the gameplay actually excelled in the last hour and a half. But that doesn't make up for the other 18 hours that I played of this game where it was not well created. The stealth mechanics were subpar at best. I could literally show you PS1 games such as Metal Gear Solid that did stealth a whole hell of a lot better than some big AAA Star Wars game on modern platforms did. It was just a game that lacked any sort of soul for me, and it really felt like it could have been any sort of bounty hunter game set in outer space, and it just happened to have a Star Wars skin on it that maybe you would recognize a few things here and there. But with this game, there were definitely questions about what was going to happen with it, how this game was going to sell, and I seem to remember a lot of people saying that this game was going to sell very well. Ubisoft themselves said that this game was going to sell exponentially well for them. It was going to be one of their heavy hitters of 2024. And after things like Prince of Persia and, of course, Skull and Bones, they really needed this to be successful. And we have our first sales data in for this game. And guess what, folks? It wasn't successful at all. Star Wars Outlaws managed to move roughly 1 million units in the first month on the marketplace, a multi-platform game, mind you, barely managed to scrape up 1 million units sold in the first month of launch. And that, my friends, is an absolute disaster. This isn't some small indie game that had a tiny budget. This was a massive game for Ubisoft. This was a game that cost a lot of money. Those Disney licenses don't come cheap. All right, they're expensive. The fact that you have to have the Disney license from Star Wars in this obviously increases the amount that this game costs to develop. A lot of time, a lot of effort went into this game. And of course, you have the fact that this was Ubisoft's biggest marketing budget ever for a video game release. Now, we don't have any sort of concrete numbers on how much this game cost, but hundreds of millions of dollars is probably where it was. And to sell 1 million copies is an absolute disaster, an absolute flop. And of course, some people will say, well, maybe people checked it out on Ubisoft Plus, which is, of course, an online subscription service that you can sign up for. I believe it's $17 a month and play the game. And sure, maybe some people did. But is that helping the sales in any way, shape, or form? Is that helping Ubisoft? Because you could just cancel it after you played the game and beat the game. And realistically speaking, you know, if you want to do every single little thing in the game, I didn't do many side missions, but if you wanted to, okay, maybe you double the time. So 40 hours, that could still be beaten in a month. Like, it's not a super long game. Of course, Ubisoft is having their own sorts of problems right now. Assassin's Creed Shadows, delayed. They're now trying to put a focus to fix the bugs and issues within Star Wars Outlaws. Because yes, there were bugs, there were issues. Sometimes Kay would fly across the map. Sometimes I would go to meet a character to start the next mission, and the character would not be there. This is all documented in my video showcasing Star Wars Outlaws off. And it's really weird to me. It's really weird to me how now Ubisoft is putting like a strong focus on Star Wars Outlaws. Like, oh, we got to fix this game. We got to put it on Steam. We're going to give you DLC for free. that's not going to fix the core fundamental problems of the game. It's not going to make the game more fun to give people DLC. It's not going to create a spark that people who potentially weren't interested in it for whatever the reason may be, whether it's the game itself, whether it's the character design of K-Vess, you're not going to necessarily get new people to come in droves to support this game all of a sudden. And I question because within an hour or so of playing Star Wars Outlaws, I could already see problems with the game. Major problems with the game. Major problems with the pacing, the storyline, the character development, the gameplay itself. Because I don't care what the main character, and you know, if you disagree with this, that's fine. It's your prerogative. But I don't care what the main character looks like, what they are, this, that, or the other. If they're well written and the game itself is fun and good and the gameplay is good, most times I can be like, all right, you know, that's cool with me. I'm here to play the game. You know, I just won't create an attachment with the main character. But within an hour of playing this game, you start to see problems and issues with it. So I thought to myself, well, how did this game end up, you know, being so heavily hyped? And why were so many people surprised? And I'm not talking about, you know, get the culture war shit out of here. Like, I'm not even taking that into account with this. I'm talking about the actual game. How were so many people surprised that the game wasn't good? Why were people so surprised that the game was not really a Star Wars feeling game? And so I decided to do a little bit of research here. And it's funny. It's so damn funny to me how everything comes back full circle to what seems to be a major problem that everyone just ignores. So this was a write-up done by Forbes, Paul Tassi, who once made fun of my appearance. That's okay, though, Paul. You know, you don't like me? I'm sorry. This was done back in July. Star Wars Outlaws hands-on previews are in hand and actually quite good. So we get, of course, there is some amount of negativity, albeit mostly from players who have simply watched footage rather than played. The all-knowing skill up, that seems kind of like a backhanded compliment. It was an exception and wasn't all that positive, but we'll give it a chance at release. But tons of other people and outlets, here's a sampling. Washington Post, I can't stand Star Wars anymore. Somehow the Ubisoft open world game reminded me why I love Star Wars. It looks fantastic. Games Radar, we played 4 hours of Outlaws and the open world gave us serious Red Dead Redemption vibes. VGC, Star Wars Outlaws doesn't feel like an Ubisoft open world, and that's a good thing. IGN, we spent 4 hours in Star Wars Outlaws, the first ever open world Star Wars game, and came away quite impressed at how organic all of its activities, characters, and worlds felt. PC Gamer, after 5 hours of exploring the galaxy and ghosting past stormtroopers, Star Wars Outlaws is finally winning me over. Game Informer, open world titles with long gameplay loops are difficult in the course of a few hours, but from the 2 hands-on sessions I've experienced at this point, I've enjoyed getting started with K-Vess and Nyx's adventure. If the loop can deliver on the promise of the game's various systems and provide a strong hook to keep me coming back for more, my inner Star Wars fan could very well have something to look forward to next month. We have other independent people. One trend I've seen is that a lot of pushback from fans who simply don't believe this is good based on the footage shown. But hey, or they think that outlets or creators were paid to give these positive impressions, but that's not how it works. And, you know, this, that, or the other, it's a whole big thing. So it's 90% positive, rest is mixed. Who cares? Who cares? What happened with all of these previews? What happened? Did all these previews, did all this positive press lead to Star Wars Outlaws being a runaway sales success or a complete disaster, a complete failure? People are trying to blame this on the fact that bugs and glitches were shown on Twitter and on various forms of social media, you know, when the game launched. Oh, okay. Is that not what you're supposed to do? Should you not inform people that this game is not in a quality state right now? Like, I don't understand. Or maybe I do understand, because it definitely became a typical culture war game where people who didn't like it for whatever reason. It doesn't matter. If you write off the game because Kves is an ugly looking character in your opinion, do I think that that's an appropriate reaction? I mean, it doesn't bother me, but maybe if it bothers you, whatever. But it seemed like anyone who had any questions about this game was automatically put onto one side of the coin. And then everyone else wanted to defend this game to counteract this culture war. And that's why you have Forbes writing an article about previews and then taking backhanded shots on people who maybe weren't interested in the game or maybe saw flaws within the game. I am someone who played and completed the game. The game is not a good game. It's mediocre at best. You could have put Jesus Christ and Han Solo and Luke Skywalker. You could put whoever into that game. It wouldn't have necessarily made the game good. You could have put a man, a woman, a child as a character. It doesn't matter. The game itself, the gameplay had core fundamental issues. It was overhyped. It was over promoted. So where did all this negativity, get you as far as, oh, look, stupid. What do you know? The journalists liked it. They said it was good in the previews. You don't know anything. So am I stupid for not liking the game? Did you like the game? Did you play the game? Like, these are just honest questions. You can't even have a conversation with people anymore because of how crazy people get on social media. So I don't even bother trying to have conversations. I'm going to say my piece and I'm going to move on. But all I know is at the end of the day, Star Wars Outlaws flopped. It flopped. All the good previews in the world, all the glazing and dick sucking didn't help this game because at its core, it was not a very good game. Jesus Christ, Greg Miller, my good friend, Greg Miller did not like this game. And he's a big Star Wars fan. I was shocked by that. But if Greg Miller and I are agreeing on something like gaming related, there's something up. It's just not a good game. And because of that, it did not sell well. And Ubisoft is once again in trouble. And I don't think that there's any saving this game. I don't think this is a situation, a No Man's Sky situation. I think so many of these companies look at something like No Man's Sky and they're like, well, we could hold on to it and maybe make it good. Cyberpunk, same sort of thing. No Man's Sky was the only game that company was working on. Cyberpunk was the only game that CD Projekt Red was working on right then and there. All right, the game got pulled off of marketplaces. Those are the outliers for success. Those are the outliers for games that manage to have a rebound. 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10, you're not going to have that rebound. And then you got Assassin's Creed Shadows looming on the horizon because there's no competition in the month of February. It is there. Like, Ubisoft's in some deep shit, man. And, it goes to show you the bigger picture. We're not in a video game crash, but major games are failing. You have to sell 1 billion copies just to break even, not even make a profit, just to break even. More and more companies are doing layoffs every single week. There was some layoffs this morning right before I filmed this video at High Res Studios, who is, of course, known for games like Smite, which was a very popular game at one point in time. But no, everything's fine, folks. Everything's fine. All right. That's what you think. That's what you think. Let me know what you think of all of this in the comments section down below, though. Are you surprised that Star Wars Outlaws has flopped? Do you think there is saving it? Because I sure as hell don't. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share. Check out the link in the description box down below and pinned comment section, the Art of N64 Wrestling Games book available on Amazon. We've been over 2 weeks at the #1 in new releases in wrestling, so I sincerely appreciate you guys. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.